to another night of chilling mysteries and unexplained phenomena on Remote Cabin Radio. Picture yourself driving along a desolate coastal road with the ocean's whispers just beyond the inky horizon. Suddenly, the night turns sinister. Strange lights dance across the water. Your car jolts, and time itself begins to slip away. This isn't a figment of imagination, but the true story of Luli Oswald, a celebrated concert pianist whose journey into the unknown became a haunting symphony of terror. What did she witness? What did she encounter? And what really happened during those lost hours? Tonight, we delve into the details of a report that left behind more questions than answers. Life, for many, is a series of performances. Each day, a new act, each challenge, a new composition. Luli Oswald, an internationally renowned concert pianist, knew this better than most. Her life was a symphony of travels, performances, and applause. Yet, on a fateful night along the coast of northern Brazil, she found herself in a terrifying encounter, one that left her more horrified than any discordant note ever could. This report comes from the legendary UFO researcher Bob Pratt, whose relentless pursuit of the truth brings us closer to the mysteries that lurk just beyond our understanding. On October 15th, 1979, Luli was driving along the coastal roads with a young neighbor, a 24-year-old student whom we'll call FX. They were on their way to Saquarema, a small resort town, to retrieve documents FX had forgotten earlier in the day. Luli had decided to accompany him, bringing along some items for her daughter who lived in the town. It seemed like a simple errand, but as the night wore on, the journey took a dark and unexpected turn. The road they chose was not the main highway, but a dirt path that twisted and turned through the mountains, hugging the coastline. The recent rains had made the road treacherous, and the darkness of the night was compounded by the absence of a moon. The two were driving cautiously when Luli noticed something strange, a series of lights over the ocean. "I told FX it was a UFO," Luli would later recount, "but he didn't believe me until he saw the lights moving himself." Her words carried the weight of someone who had seen the unimaginable. But FX, ever the skeptic, initially dismissed her observation. However, the inexplicable events that followed made it impossible to deny. Suddenly, the car's engines sputtered and died, leaving them stranded on the lonely road. FX got out to check under the hood, but as he did, the headlights began flickering on and off. "He thought I was playing a trick on him, but I wasn't," Luli said. The car, without warning, roared back to life. And they continued on their way, now deeply unsettled. As they approached Saquarema, the lights reappeared. This time, FX could see them clearly, and there was no longer any doubt. The beach, despite the pitch-black night, was illuminated as if by an invisible force. The two were unnerved, but they tried to laugh it off when they arrived at Luli's daughter's house. Their attempts at humor fell flat, though, and a sense of unease lingered in the air. After a short visit, they set off again, intending to take the highway back to Rio. But fate had other plans. Somehow, they missed the turn and found themselves back on the same dirt road they had come in on. It was as if the path had called them back, leading them toward an encounter they could not avoid. As they neared the village of Ponta Negra, the UFOs reappeared, rising from the ocean just a few hundred yards offshore. FX, now fully alert, counted 7 to 10 of them, while Luli, still shaken, thought there were only 5. The sight was surreal. Each craft emerged from the water, trailing a cascade of shimmering droplets that sparkled in the air before falling back into the sea. And then, looming ahead, they saw it, a massive black object, at least 100 meters across, with a dome on top. Its shape was only discernible because it was darker than the night sky. I felt a strange sense of calm about the big one, Luli said, but the smaller ones, they made me uneasy. The situation escalated quickly. The car began to shake violently, and FX thought they had blown all 4 tires at once, but the tires were fine. Panic set in as the car doors, though locked, began to bang open and shut on their own. The vehicle was now out of control, swerving wildly across the road. At that moment, 2 of the smaller UFOs descended toward them, their lights blazing. FX was on the verge of hysteria, but Luli urged him to stop so they could hide under the car. Neither could remember what happened next, only that they found themselves suddenly speeding down the highway, hurtling through an intersection at breakneck speed. FX slammed on the brakes, desperate to regain control. They stopped at a gas station several miles down the road, where they discovered, to their shock, that it was already 2 o'clock in the morning. By their calculations, it should have been no later than 11:30. They had lost hours of time, with no memory of where those hours had gone. The encounter had left them shaken, but the full horror of that night was yet to be revealed. Luli and FX returned to Rio, trying to resume their normal lives, but the memory of that night gnawed at them. It wasn't long before they were contacted by Irene Granchi, a well-known Brazilian UFO investigator. She had heard about their encounter and was eager to learn more. In January of the following year, Irene arranged for an interview, and Luli and FX recounted their story once more. But something still felt incomplete, as if they were missing crucial pieces of the puzzle. To uncover what really happened, Irene suggested that Luli undergo hypnosis with the help of Dr. Silvio Lago, a retired physician and experienced hypnotist. Luli hoped to unlock the memories buried deep within her subconscious. The hypnosis session, conducted in Portuguese with Irene acting as interpreter, began in a small, darkened room. As Dr. Lago guided her into a trance, Luli's mind drifted back to that fateful night. Her voice, calm at first, began to tremble as she relived the experience. The nightmare begins. Luli's voice trembled as she began recounting her harrowing experience. Suddenly, we're no longer on the mountain road. We're along the shore, she murmured, her eyes wide with fear. Then I start seeing 1, 2, 3 lights twinkling, moving closer and then back and forth, and then a big one, right in front of us. The car, as if possessed by some unseen force, began to buck wildly. "It's jumping like a goat," she cried out, her fear mounting. FX, startled, muttered, "The tires must have burst." But when he stepped out to check, the tires were untouched, perfect. The mystery deepened as they found themselves suddenly back on the mountain road, as if nothing had happened. But something had happened, something beyond explanation. Luli's voice dropped to a whisper as she continued. Then a black, beautiful disc appeared. I'm inside the big flying saucer. It's transparent, but not glass. There are no people around, just the small ones, 3 of them. They're guiding the big one, directing it with beams of light. Her breath quickened as she recalled the next moment. I felt sick, nauseated. Our car, it was seized by the top. The light from the small ones was holding us. We were prisoners. We screamed, but it didn't matter. We weren't on the ground anymore. That light had us in its grasp, and it was horrible. Tears welled up in her eyes as she relived the terror. They're pulling us. We've entered the black disc from below, and we're inside it. Dr. Largo, his voice calm but probing, asked, "Is there any light?" Through her tears, Luli responded, "It's like an operating room, but we're no longer in the car. The car is in the UFO, but we're outside of it." Luli's sobbing intensified. "They're inserting tubes everywhere, pulling my hair," she cried out. Dr. Largo pressed on. "Who are they?" They look like rats," Luli gasped, her voice breaking with horror. "How large are they?" Dr. Largo asked, trying to extract details. "Horrible. Their ears are like rats, huge and grotesque." Luli struggled to describe them. "Their mouths? Just slits, no teeth. They're filthy. Do they have 2 legs? They stand like ducks, with webbed feet. They're touching me, everywhere." "Do they have fingers?" Luli hesitated, then cried, "I don't know. Maybe very thin arms." Her fear reached a peak as she let out a terrifying scream. "How tall are they?" "About the size of a child, maybe 13 years old. Their faces like rats. There's no shape to their necks, just thin, rat-like faces." "How many of them?" 5. "Their skin is sticky and gray, no clothes, more like animals, or maybe it's something covering them, maybe masks. But no, their faces. They could be wearing oxygen masks, but I don't see any tubes." Luli's terror grew as she recalled, "They put FX on a table. He looked dead, completely lifeless, on that cold, marble-like slab. But it wasn't marble. They were using rays of light, flashes on his head, and I could see it all." "Do you see any apparatuses around?" Dr. Largo asked. "Yes, tubes, but they're not using them. Only the light's coming from them." "Is there an instrument panel?" "Yes." "What does it look like?" "Like a plane's panel, but with no clocks, only buttons." "Is there an operator?" "Not that I can see. Everything's black. I don't understand how I can see the panel. It's just black." "And where is FX?" "They left him. He's deathly white, naked. Now they're messing with my ears, my nose. They made me sit, bend my head down. They're touching me. Everywhere, like a gynecological exam. But most of all, my ears. They put something in my ears, with a ray of light." "What does it smell like?" Dr. Largo asked, his voice low. "Sulfur. It's suffocating. I can't breathe." Luli gasped, her breath catching in her throat. "What is the temperature like?" "Normal. Neither warm nor cold." "Are they talking to you?" "They don't speak. They just look at me and each other." "How do they communicate?" "With their heads, one looks at the other and something happens. They just know, they understand each other like that." "Did they open your mouth?" "Yes. They put something in my throat, but it didn't bother me much. It was my left ear. I don't know what they did to my left ear." "Is there light around you?" "The panel was black, the rest like a phosphorescent glow. FX wasn't even breathing." Then they examined his head, shining a ray on his crown, just like they did to me. I could see the lines, like an electrocardiogram, but no needle. The rays were making the lines, just like with me." "What else did they do to FX?" "He's still lying there, naked." "Did they manipulate his sex organs?" Dr. Largo's question hung in the air. Luli shuddered. "Yes, but not at first. Only after they touched his head." "What are they looking at?" "He had sex with one of them. But it wasn't like a man. It was like a puppet, but not. It was one of them, lying on top of FX, like they've done this before. I can feel it. He must be the 15th. What is the purpose of this?" It's not for satisfaction, it's for research. Everything is for research. This is a nightmare, a terrible nightmare. Is this very real to you? Dr. Largo asked, his tone softening. There is no reality here, but it happened, which is even worse. It is irreality, but it happened. They are very interested in him because he is a young man. With me, they only touched me some, but they are not at all interested. They want to send me back. I don't interest them. The boy was nearly kept there for good. Did they say that? Or did you just understand that? I felt that they wanted to keep him longer. We stayed there 2 hours. A heavy silence filled the room. Then Dr. Largo asked, "Why did you not remember this before?" Luli's voice cracked. "They cut it from me, like I was an animal. God help me now. Why wouldn't they want you to remember?" When I asked that, everything went black around me. I can't see anymore. They're telling me the memories are too violent. We're not ready for them. She paused, a shiver running through her, before speaking again. "One of them was nice to me." Dr. Largo's curiosity piqued. Why? He felt sorry for us, for those taken without reason. "Where do they come from?" Dr. Largo's voice was barely above a whisper. "Some from the Antarctic, from Patagonia. There's a tunnel under the South Pole, a tunnel inside the Antarctic. The beings I saw, they come from there, intraterrestrials. That's why they come from the water, into a tube, another world under there. Others from outside. This group, they're evil, but one among them, he's good." "Why is he helping you?" Dr. Largo asked, leaning in. "He said he was from another group, abducted by the evil ones, and he feels sorry for us." A strange calm washed over Luli as she continued. "Now, they're taking blood from FX's brain, through a tube. I'm not afraid anymore. The blood, it's going back. Somehow, back through the same tube. When it returns to his arms, they examine him there. It's strange." Her voice grew distant, detached. "Suddenly, I'm dressed again. I don't know how. We're back in the car still inside the UFO. FX is in the driver's seat, but he looks dead. No reaction." A pause, then a soft whisper. "Now we're no longer in the UFO. I don't know where we are, but we're on the road again. And just as we touch the road, FX is awake, alert, and we're driving through the intersection." The session soon ended, and Dr. Largo brought Luli out of the trance. "I am very impressed by her report," he said. "I feel it is sincere, and she is telling the truth. The clear impression I got was that she tried to retransmit her own experience. There is no doubt in my mind that she was not lying. She was telling the truth as she relived it, as she experienced it. It is absolutely not a case of her inventing something. It was absolutely sincere." Dr. Largo once taught psychotherapy and medical hypnosis, and had long been interested in the paranormal. "What I find surprising in these captures or abductions," he said, referring to the examinations of Luli and FX aboard the UFO, "is that the tests that are made reveal a certain degree of imprecision, and are rather elementary, apparently showing a certain innocence or naivety on the part of the outside researchers. Whoever knows technology well may not know anything about the human being. Most of the UFO phenomena seem to be coated with a certain naivety on the part of the UFO beings. These experiences seem to be repeated everywhere." Dr. Largo was a pianist himself, and at our request, after we had lunch, he sat down at his piano and played a classical piece for us. He has since died. Luli had several UFO sightings in the following years, but no encounters and nothing like what happened the night of October 15th, 1979. She suffered serious injuries in an auto accident some years later, but recovered. I have been told that Luli no longer wants to talk about UFOs. I don't know what became of FX. The experience had been a waking nightmare, a violation of her mind and body that left her shaken to her core. As the hypnosis session came to an end, Luli was left with more questions than answers. What were these beings? Why had they taken her? And what had they done to her and FX during those lost hours? The encounter haunted Luli for years to come, a shadow that darkened her life in ways she could never have imagined. For someone who had spent her life creating beauty through music, this experience was a dissonant chord that reverberated in her soul. The memory of those rat-like beings, with their cold, emotionless faces, and the inexplicable terror of that night became a burden she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Though she continued to perform, her music now carried an undercurrent of sorrow, a reflection of the darkness that had invaded her world. The encounter was a reminder that there are things in this world and beyond that we may never fully understand. For Luli, it was a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying things are the ones we cannot explain, the ones that lurk in the shadows of our minds, waiting to be uncovered. For those seeking the truth behind the inexplicable, Luli Oswald's story is a chilling reminder of the unknown. Her experience, whether seen as an extraterrestrial encounter or a deep psychological ordeal, shows us that our universe is vast and unsettling. What started as a routine drive became a journey through an eerie, time-bending mystery. Luli's tale illustrates how the ordinary can turn extraordinary, and the line between knowledge and fear is disturbingly thin. At Remote Cabin Radio, we delve into these shadows not to provide answers, but to spark questions. What happened during Luli's ordeal? Was it an encounter with the unknown or a reflection of our deepest fears? Some mysteries may never be fully explained, but they remind us that the world is filled with strange and haunting phenomena. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We'll continue to bring you stories that blur the lines between reality and the supernatural. Until next time, remember, there's always another tale waiting to be uncovered here on Remote Cabin Radio, where history and mystery come alive.